Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Friday morning to you all. I hope you guys are doing awesome out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day. And I certainly hope everyone has had a great week as we head off into a new weekend. Hope you guys got some pretty cool things planned over the weekend. I know me and my girls do. We're having kind of a daddy-daughter day for tomorrow. We're going to our first football game of the season. I've been to a few already. They have not been to one this season, so they're very excited about it. I'm very excited about it. And I certainly hope you got some plans that you're excited about. So here to break down a few things of the weather. The first thing we'll discuss is this pattern change. What does this mean storm system wise? How cold will the air be? I think it will be some of the coldest air of the season for some folks, but we're still trying to figure this pattern out. We're going to talk about what's changed, what stayed the same, and just really spend some time on this big time pattern change on the way for the central and eastern U.S. especially. After we get done doing that, we will give you some updated information on the tropics. Things have definitely trended better for like Florida, places like that, where 2 days ago it was looking like we could have a hurricane threat for Florida. Now it definitely does not look like that, but we're certainly paying attention to this for you folks down in like Central America that continues just to get a lot of heavy rain. So we will give you a brief update on that, and then of course we got you covered for what's going to happen weather-wise across the entire lower 48 for your Friday. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put it in the comments below. And folks, I just want to say thank you for the prayers. I made the personal video a few days ago just asking for prayers, and I've been asking for prayers for a lot more. I would say a lot more often than I normally do, just with the situation with YouTube and just with some challenging things. Our dog died last week, and just been a challenging season. The entire fall has been for me and my family, but I try to remember that there's many people out there that have it worse, but your prayers have worked. They really have. Something about this week has shifted, and I don't know. It's hard to explain without, talking about it for 5 or 10 minutes, which we don't have the time to do, but just thank you for the prayers over the situations that, me and my family have been through. They mean the world. So with that being said, let's get rocking and rolling. So we're taking a look at water vapor loop, and a lot of people might say, I'm not quite sure what I'm looking at, but kind of the dull colors on your screen. This is drier air. The whiter or just lighter colors on your screen, more moist air, but I wouldn't focus too much on that. What we're going to kind of look at here is just the movements of all this, kind of the moving picture. So if you notice out here in the Pacific, we got this kind of flow coming out the west, southwesterly flow, and then it kind of goes up like this, right? And then it kind of goes like that, kind of goes back down. Then you have this spinning feature right here. That is our cutoff flow that brought just a cold November rain yesterday across areas of the southeast, especially the Carolinas. This continues to spin around and dump some rain this morning across areas of the Delmarva. But this will move out this way and then, get out the picture. At the same time, we kind of have a trough down here, but in general, we have this ridge that's kind of built up over the south central U.S., a trough digging right here, and you can just really see the pattern very well this morning. So I'm showing you this for a reason, because it's going to lead us into what's to come. So trough out west, ridge in the middle of the country, cutoff low right here, not really a trough, just a cutoff low pressure, which is lower pressure, same thing as the trough, just a different kind of feature, if you will. So that's what's going on right at this second with the pattern. Let's get this back off your screen, continue to move forward. So I want you to kind of visualize what you're seeing here, okay? Kind of keep that in your mind, and then let's look at this, okay? Now, you're probably thinking, it doesn't mean a whole lot to me, okay? But remember, we discussed trough right here, ridge right here, cutoff low right here. Trough of low pressure, cutoff low pressure are both going to show up in blue, right? Well, sure enough, there's the blue right here. There's the blue right here. And remember, the ridge shows up in the warmer colors, which makes sense because it's right here, right? So you can see this on the 500 millibar chart, upper levels of the atmosphere, very well. So it matches like for like. Great example that we're seeing this morning of this, right? So let's keep this going. This is when we start to obviously break down our pattern change. We started off this morning. Let's keep this rolling. This ridge is really a flowing ridge. It's not really deep-rooted. Not, when I say deep-rooted, I'm not meaning quite literally, but it's not really entrenched into the pattern, okay? It hangs around for a while. All right, we get into the end of this weekend. You'll notice a moderation of temperatures across the eastern U.S. I don't think we're going to have super, well above average temperatures, but definitely a warming trend, okay? And we get this in the next week. This is when our pattern begins to evolve. Now, you see two things out west, right? Okay, you see this kind of darker shade of blue here and this darker shade of blue here, and we just got ridging over the central and eastern U.S. little upper energy right here, but we won't focus too much on that. This energy that you see right here will eject across the middle of the country. Watch how it starts down here in New Mexico, and Texas, and it ejects across the middle of the country, right? Okay, this will bring a potential 2-day severe setup for this coming Sunday and Monday, as this ejecting little upper trough, if you will, kind of yanks up some low-level moisture from the south. That'll eject. There is the potential for a snowy side of this on this side. As this ejects, you're going to have a colder side with this energy. And I know this confuses people. I saw a couple comments yesterday, and trust me, I'm always trying to get better with explaining this. But just think blue, trough of low pressure, unsettled weather. Lower pressure normally means unsettled weather, right? Higher pressure normally is the opposite, okay? But things get a little bit weirder with high pressure because you could have cold high pressure also, which kind of can set the stage for a cold air damming event. But let's not get too much in that loophole right there, right this second. There'll be a time and a place for that. So this lower shade of blue is ejecting across the country. That is a storm system. And then a full-fledged trough kind of digs down into the middle of the country. This is the middle of next week, the morning of the 20th. And then this fully gets cut off because of blocking to our north. So we have this massive, you can call upper trough, massive cutoff low. Okay, and then a ridge spikes out west. Okay, and this typically happens. It's a vice versa type thing, right? Ridge spikes out west. This causes the jet to dig out east. Jet spikes up here, digs in the east. And so we get this big lower heights, basically, this lower pressure area in blue that shows up over the eastern U.S. This will bring colder temperatures. This will bring unsettled weather, and it's going to bring a lot of kind of small pieces of energy pivoting around this area right here. I'm going to try drawing this. So you're going to have little pieces of energy maybe pivoting around here, then pivoting back up like this. Just some kind of weird behavior, if you will. Not super weird. I mean, we see it, but we're going to have little areas of energy pivoting around this area of low pressure. Okay? But basically, think of this big blob of blue. It's just some unsettled weather, colder temperatures. And this hangs around. Now, does this stick around? So we get into next Friday, okay? Do we get, and this is when we're going to switch to this, okay? Do we get sort of an amplification, if you will, of the trough? Meaning, does this area in blue kind of exit on out, or does it stay with us? So we had a trend, okay, where we had lack of ridging in Alaska for about a few runs. Now we've kind of gotten our ridging back in Alaska. So when we have this ridge that sort of spikes up here, right? This allows for more cold air to slide down this way. If we have this blue up here, it's the opposite, okay? It doesn't allow for cold air to eject into our trough right here. Basically a true cold air injection. A cutoff low is going to bring its own cold air aloft, if you will, okay, already. But if you have an injection of cold air into this buckling of the jet stream to the south in the eastern U.S., then you're going to have more true cold air to work with from the Arctic, from Canada. Okay, so you got that ridge. So we're getting this injection of kind of new cold air as we get into next weekend after the initial cutoff low. When we keep this going, how long does that stick around? Well, it shows this trough over the eastern U.S. all the way through Sunday. If you look a couple runs back, 1, 2, 3, it kind of lost that, right? And it's because you're seeing some more blue showing up in Alaska. Watch up here in Alaska how the warmer colors re-show up. Okay, the ridging begins to return. All right, this kind of allows for cold air to kind of slide south. And I know this is very hard to explain, but, and I like to try to explain it the best way I can. But, we've had a bit of a trend on the operational run of the GFS that supports maybe a little bit more longevity to the pattern. Now, you flip it to the Euro. It's different. Euro, same thing. Same evolution we get through the weekend. Ridge slides over the east. There goes that piece of energy ejecting across the middle of the country that could bring maybe a winter storm on the cold side, maybe a little severe weather on the south side. We'll talk more on that here in a second. And then here comes that cutoff low that settles in over the eastern U.S. Same thing with the GFS, right? Okay. How long does it stick around? And this could bring some northwest flow snow, some lake effect energy. It could bring just this full-fledged cutoff low, and the weather can get really weird depending on where the cold air aloft is. I'll show you that here in a second. And then this kind of amplifies somewhat over the eastern U.S. So Friday morning, we have this trough setting up over the eastern U.S. Now, once again, let's take a broader look at this at North America. Now, on the Euro, and that stinks. The Euro has not finished running on this. So we're actually going to do this. We got you covered. Just hang with me. I got you. Yeah. Actually, the 06Z is running already. So weather bell is already always on it. You just got to pay for it, unfortunately. But it's worth it. But here's that big trough in the eastern U.S., right? Huge look. Look at this blocking up here. This ridge of high pressures, big time blocking up in Greenland. Negative NAO is what we call it. We'll go into those fancy terms soon. Here's already a little bit of injection of new cold air. See this blue kind of trying to move into the trough. But the trough sort of slips away too fast. We still got ridging up here, but we do have troughing over areas of Canada, which is basically messy Pacific air that's going to mess with the pattern. So with the Euro, you do get a low pressure that develops in Atlantic Canada off the coast of the Northeast, but the ridge really moves in over the eastern U.S. quicker than the GFS. Now, eventually, you might get another trough in the longer range that shows up, but it's definitely more of a fleeting pattern on the Euro. Big trough drops down. Here's all those, dark blue colors. I mean, it's such a, amped up trough that, you got these anomalies showing up in like the greens and stuff like that, but it just kind of moves in and it moves out. Now, you do get this little injection into the trough at the last second, but it's just too late, okay? So, obviously trend to a ridge here. So the models disagree. So what does this mean in the surface? I know I just spoke to you about 8-9 minutes about a lot of stuff that probably confused you, but we try to look at that to figure out what's going to look at how is it going to look at the surface, right? So GFS, here we go. There's that system that we just talked about. Here's a great example, all right? This is kind of Monday morning. All right, we could have some severe weather for Sunday. We're getting into Monday. You see all this green? That's energy, all right? That's a storm system. You compare that with, say, the GFS and what that looks like as far as the very probably confusing graphics I was just showing you. All right, let's go all the way to this coming Monday morning. Here it is. You see this? Here it is right here. You see Monday morning, blob of darker blue. You compare that to the surface right here. There's a storm system. So that makes sense, right? Darker blue, energy, lower pressure, storm system. All right? So we keep moving, getting to Monday afternoon. Probably going to have a little bit of severe weather for Texas. But does this low pressure, all this rain, link up to any cold air on the GFS? As we're getting to Tuesday, it does not. It finally does way up here in North Dakota and Minnesota, but it really ain't a big deal. Okay, and then cold air tries to eject into this trough right here. Trough really strengthens, amplifies here. And we start to get some cold air, but there's no true cold air source initially. So we're getting a bunch of rain up here in the Great Lakes region, but snow in the Ohio Valley. You're thinking, how in the world is this happening, Mitch? And I'm going to get a closer look at this here in a second when we show the eastern U.S. I'll talk to you about that here in a second. But, we keep going past this, and the GFS does want to sort of bring more cold air down after this official first shot of cold air. It wants to slide down more, but that, it's getting kind of far out, week 7 to 8 days out, okay? Now, let's go back. Let's look at the eastern U.S. with the GFS, all right? We're getting through this weekend. All right, we're getting early next week. We're getting the next Tuesday. Here comes, that's what could be Sarah down here, the leftovers of Sarah that could bring some tropical moisture to Florida. Okay, here comes our system. All right, at the kind of the exit region of this trough. Low pressure comes with this big area of low pressure. Okay, with this trough of low pressure. All right, here it is. So, with a cutoff low, it brings its own cold air. Okay, so cold air aloft will be centered right in the middle of this cutoff low. Okay, it'll have the best cold air aloft to work with. At the surface, not much different than up here, but kind of in the middle, more cold air aloft, the dynamics can kick in a little bit more. That's why it shows snow on the GFS next Thursday morning in Ohio, but up here in the UP and Michigan, just rain, because you're away from the cold air pocket aloft that's there. So basically, you have colder temperatures just above your head than you do up here. Okay, and that can make all the difference. A lot of people, think that it's all about what the temperature is at the surface. Absolutely not. We'll dive deep into that when we're breaking down kind of a wintry system that has a mixed bag of precipitation. But check out how this thing literally spins over Lake Erie, dumps a lot of heavy snow over Ohio, okay, has some snow all the way down to the North Carolina and Tennessee mountains, and then dumps a ton of snow over West Virginia, even areas of PA. That cold pocket aloft is right over areas of the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. And it dumps a big-time snow event across West Virginia, even all the way down to, like I said, the mountains of Virginia, North Carolina, and Tennessee. I wouldn't say a big-time event for them, but, man, this would turn into a big snow event for West Virginia. And then you start to get some true cold air that kind of gets reinforced. Once this true cold air comes in that we talked about when we were breaking down ridging and troughing on the GFS heights there, once you get a true injection of cold air that spills over the Great Lakes, next Saturday morning, that's when you can get those lake effect snow bands going. And that's exactly what happens here. Okay. Now the Euro, same thing. Here comes our system ejecting across the country. Could bring some severe weather, a lot of heavy rain. Tries to turn into a snow event across areas of North Dakota, but this is actually trending away from a major winter storm across the plains. And then same thing. Here comes that cold air aloft that moves down with this cutoff low and this trough of low pressure. And eventually that rain switches to snow, as you can tell right here, but it's all rain in the Great Lakes region. And you do get a fresh injection of cold air next week into the Great Lakes region, but it's not as potent as, say, the GFS. So really, it's kind of the same as the GFS with the Euro over the middle of the country. This is a storm system that flies across the middle of the country. Okay, what about the eastern U.S.? Okay, well, let's go back to this. Eastern U.S., here it comes. System moves in. This is all rain in the deep south, all rain for the mid-Atlantic, and then the cold air kind of moves in, right? This punch of cold air aloft. Not a ton at the surface, definitely cooler temperatures at the surface, but aloft with this cutoff low. And we start to get a lot of rain, a chilly rain across the Ohio Valley, the Midwest. Some of that begins to switch to snow, and in fact it does. Kind of like the GFS, but there's not a true injection of cold air in this. That's why you see this kind of blue line that's kind of going like this. That is because there is colder air aloft just in this area. Outside of this area, it's cold. When I say aloft, I mean in the upper levels of the atmosphere. It's cold, but not as cold as it is in this area. So the dynamics can kick in. That's why you got rain in lower Michigan and snow in Ohio, because it's colder in the upper levels of the atmosphere. This can crash down, keep those snowflakes for longer before melting them. Up here, it's warmer aloft. Okay? And to keep going, this gets all the way to the mountains of north, basically the southern and central Alps. Higher elevations start to get some snow from this, all the way from the Smokies, all the way to the mountains, the Allegheny Mountains of PA and Maryland. And and then we get a little bit further out in the Euro, and we definitely need to watch, this system right here, because we could end up getting a little bit of blocking up here and getting a storm system for Atlantic Canada in the Northeast. So that's kind of breaking down the evolution of these storm systems. I know that's kind of everywhere, but it's going to be everywhere. Now, the severe weather side of this, we already have a slight risk, level 2 out of 5 for Sunday. This includes portions of central to western to southwestern Texas, San Angelo, Abilene, Wichita Falls, Midland, all the way down to Kerrville and, into the Big Hill country. So a level 2 out of 5, we just know that there's a 15% risk of severe weather. And then for day 4, for Monday, a slight risk already, level 2 out of 5, risk of severe weather for the Dallas-Fort Worth area, all the way almost down to Austin, not quite, but almost, includes Wichita Falls. So you also have a severe weather event, most likely for Monday. And why? It's because you had that first trough ejection over the middle of the country, that storm system. So we start off Sunday morning, and we keep this going, and we get all the way to Sunday afternoon. You got dew points in the 60s. That's enough for the high plains of Texas. So moisture already building into eastern Texas, dew points in the 60s and 70s. So check that off the boxes of thermodynamic, okay? And then we get into Monday. Same deal. Now, we could have a faster progression of this because you have a cold front that's moving in. But we could have severe weather getting into Monday morning, maybe into early Monday afternoon, and we could get a little severe weather, maybe, depending on where the placement of the low pressure is, even into Louisiana and Arkansas. And of course, we're going to have a little bit of wind flow with this. And you look at the Cape levels based off the Euro, okay, and this will tweak a little bit. Not a lot of energy for Sunday. We get into Monday, okay, especially Monday morning, a little bit of energy, but not a lot. The Euro really doesn't show anything overly concerning. But the moisture will be there. A little bit of wind flow aloft because of this system ejecting across the country. So, you're going to have the dynamics for probably a lower to mid-range event, severe weather event. Could this uptrend? It absolutely could. Now, speaking about the snow side of this is between now and the next 8 or so days. This is the Euro Ensemble. Euro Ensemble still likes the idea for a hefty snow event across North Dakota, maybe Minnesota. The operational run does not support this much. The Euro Ensemble doesn't show much in the way of any Great Lakes snow either. It shows a little bit of a snow signal for the Midwest, but overall it's not very impressive. And here's the Eastern U.S. with this. Let's flip it back to this. Now I will say what's wild about this, and let's go about 9 days out, okay? What's wild about this is the Euro Ensemble really went crazy with a signal for the mountains of West Virginia. I mean, it even shows a solid signal all the way down to the Smokies, the mountains of North Carolina. In fact, you kind of compare what this is showing compared to the run yesterday afternoon, and that's a huge increase. So, yeah, pretty wild stuff there. So that is a several inch snowfall mean for West Virginia. And of course, it increased for the Ohio Valley too. I think this cutoff low is going to do some wacky stuff. I really do. And, going to the GFS ensemble. Okay, the GFS ensemble. I got to figure out the best way to say that. Let's just go, same thing, 7 to 8 days out. Very weak signal for any snow across this area. But you go to the eastern U.S. and listen, the signal has really increased for, let's just go about 10 days out. The signal has really increased for lake effect snow for, New York, and just this weird cutoff low. Just like the Euro Ensemble, you have a hefty signal for snow into West Virginia, and you even have a little bit of a signal for snow all the way down to the Smokies. Okay, but man, West Virginia, right now, it looks good for snow next weekend, late next week into next weekend. So, as far as temperatures, what does this mean? Below average temperatures in the 6 to 10 day range starting to look likely across the south central U.S., and this is starting to ooze into the southeastern U.S. Still above average temperatures up here in the northeast, but you look at the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook, 22nd through the 28th, almost through Thanksgiving, and below average temperatures starting to look possible to likely across much of the southern tier of the country. Okay, so it's definitely coming. And you look at the temperatures compared to average starting off Wednesday morning. Here it is. Look at the below average temperatures oozing into the south central U.S. Nothing too crazy at all, but definitely a few to as much as several degrees below average. This is getting into next Thursday. This is getting into next Friday. And, it gets kind of weird next weekend. Does a ridge replace this trough over the central U.S.? It most likely will. So you start to see above average temperatures return. But, you look at the eastern U.S., we'll kind of go back a little bit here. You look at the eastern U.S., and we'll kind of start it. Let's back it up a little bit. Wednesday evening, above average temperatures looking likely across the eastern U.S. midway next week. But then as we start to get into next, say Thursday, below average temperatures begin to take over. Most of the southern tier of the country, the deep south, the south central U.S., the mid-south, and it lingers, all the way through Friday, through the weekend, below average temperatures to the southeast. And, it looks like it begins to moderate. Now, I would say the GFS ensemble may be a little bit colder. Let's see what this looks like. Let's back it up here. And yeah, it's a good bit colder. And typically this has a colder bias, I would say. but definitely shows chilly temperatures taking over next weekend across the south central U.S. But we'll continue to watch this. This could fluctuate a little bit, but yeah. So that's an update on the pattern change. I went way too long on that, but you know how we do on this channel. But an update on the tropics. I'm not going to spend very long on this. We still have Tropical Storm Sarah here. Did get named Sarah yesterday. Weak tropical storm. I think it's a 45-mile-per-hour tropical storm right now. Might be a 50 by the time, you know, some folks watch this. This is no longer forecast to be a hurricane. It never was forecast technically to be a hurricane. Some of the model runs were crazy with it, but the National Hurricane Center started low, and they made the right decision. Heavy rain kind of getting thrown back into Honduras. Some rain probably moving into Belize. A little bit of sneaking into Nicaragua. And, you know, it's just going to be a hefty rain event over the next few days. Definitely praying for the best case scenario down there. But, you know, like I said, 45-mile-per-hour tropical storm. It might strengthen back in, you know, a little bit higher, but it'll go make a second landfall most likely into Belize. And then hopefully will just fall apart over areas of Central America. And, you know, just taking a look at the GFS of the evolution of this, hangs out down here most of the weekend. The leftover energy of it gets off the northern end of the Yucatan next week into the Gulf. Could try to come together somewhat. Might bring some moisture into Florida midway next week, but we're not expecting this to fully redevelop or anything like that. So that's it on the tropics. I know it's only a minute and a half, 2 minutes, but honestly, things have changed dramatically with that. As far as what's going on right now, a little bit of mixed bag of precipitation trying to get thrown back into eastern Maine. Could get a little bit of freezing rain. The leftovers of this cutoff low is drifting off the eastern seaboard. We're waking up to a washout in northeast North Carolina, southeast Virginia. Chilly rain for sure. A little bit of energy flying across the western U.S. Middle of the country, bone dry, quiet. Watches, warnings, and advisories. Winter storm watches up for the Cascades. Winter weather advisories up for the Sierra Nevada. Rockies have winter weather advisories, some wind alerts out here. And we do have some dense fog advisories. Red flag warnings continue to plague and expand across southern New England. Then there's this winter weather advisories across Maine for that little bit of freezing rain. Hopefully we can get a big storm system soon for the Northeast to really wipe out this massive drought that's really taking a hold. But we'll fly through this pretty quick, guys. That rain will exit. There's that cutoff low getting off the eastern seaboard. And then almost everybody in the Southeast will have a beautiful Friday once this cutoff low gets on out of here, and be a fall-like, mid-November fall-like day for sure. Okay, up here in the Northeast, chilly temperatures, and we're going to get a little bit of rain that continues after it warms up. Up here in Maine, some rain showers, but most of the Northeast is quiet today. Also chilly but quiet. Could wake up to more again to maybe a wintry mix up here in western Maine, but should be mostly rain. South central U.S., very quiet also. I mean, just the definition of quiet for south central U.S. I mean, beautiful Friday expected. Same thing for the north central U.S., quiet weather. All this is going to change over the next few days, but today, quiet. And then the western U.S., a little bit more active, a little bit of energy flying across the Rockies in the form of higher elevation snow, valley rain. Could get a little bit more amped up here. As we're getting into this evening, across the northern Rockies, Idaho, Montana, maybe even Wyoming, some snow could add up for sure to several inches. And, this little weak low will try to get some snow flying around across eastern Montana tomorrow morning. So not a whole lot's been discussed about that. They're not really going for a whole lot in this area, just maybe an inch or so. And this is all the way through about Sunday morning. Several inches of snow will add up in those higher mountaintops and ranges, but just typical fall-like stuff out here. Temperatures, a chilly day in the Northeast, not as cold as yesterday, but chillier temperatures could hang around for the Mid-Atlantic for sure. Cool winter-like day all the way down to Tennessee and northern Alabama, even Mississippi, northern Georgia. Chilly temperatures, typical mid-November type stuff. South central U.S., 60s and 70s, nicer conditions, and then this is the western U.S. That's all I got, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day and a good start to your weekend.